The next exercise in our video series is going to be the squat. Okay, so everyone is familiar with the squat. You'll have all seen it or done it in the workouts at some stage. It's a brilliant exercise that no matter what level of athlete you are, from a total beginner to Olympic athletes, everyone is still doing variations of the squat. The reason why it's so popular and so important is that it's a major compound movement, so it's working more than one muscle group, mainly all the muscles in our legs. It stimulates the most hormonal response in our body. It gets our heart rate up the most out of any exercise. It stimulates the most blood flow, so it's tons and tons of benefits. Everyone should be able to squat. It's one thing that we're born with when we're children, and if you look at a baby that squat perfectly, and as people grow older and sit on toilets and sit on chairs and just become more sedentary, we lose that ability to do so. So everyone should be striving to get a good squat. Okay, so the setup position for the squat is just standing feet shoulder width apart. From here you're just going to sit back as if you're sitting into a chair. Okay, so you can use your arms out in front as a counterbalance. Just sit down and back up. Okay, so common mistakes with the squat. Firstly, one of the mistakes people make is really trying to load the position without having proper movement first. So people putting weights on their back and things like that when they haven't got the body weight mechanics down to a T. Sometimes what you'll see is people's knees coming in. We don't want that, okay? So always push your knees out and try and force them out as you squat down. Sometimes people will squat down here. Sometimes people will squat to here, only half reps, okay? Everyone's will look a lot more different than some of the variations on the other exercises. It could be down to ankle mobility, it could be down to knee issues, it could be down to hip mobility. A lot of people won't be able to get full depth without falling forward, so I'll show you some corrections for that now too. Okay, so one of the most basic corrections for people that can't reach a certain amount of depth in the squat is to raise their heels. Okay, so it takes your ankles out of the equation. So just raise your heels on anything. I'm using the yoga mat here. It could be a ledge, it could be a piece of wood, it could be anything at all. And from here, generally people are able to get a lot more depth, okay? Generally, I'll only be recommending people to go just slightly below parallel, okay? We don't always need to go down all the way. And so just down to parallel, back up is perfect. Secondly, if people are really struggling at that bottom portion, what you can do is literally just sit down and back up. That's the basic starter. Sit down and back up. Okay, next thing we're going to look at is progressions on the squat, how to make it harder. The most obvious one is to add weight, and even still I'll always still be trying to add weight to my squat, but it's a lot harder to do once we get up to higher levels. You'll see people with weights on their back. Generally we don't need to do that until we're at a fairly elite level and everything else is perfect in terms of our movement patterns. I always recommend loading the front, okay? So you'll see sometimes having a dumbbell here or a kettlebell here. If you don't have access to that, it's as simple as putting a couple of liters of water in a school bag, putting it on your front, and then squatting down. And what that does is, because that weight actually forces you to sit back more into the squat, it actually teaches correct movement patterns on that too. The next way is to progress the squat is to go for a single leg squat. So this time start with a chair, and all you're going to do is lower yourself onto the chair on one leg, okay? And what you can do from here is either push back up on one leg, or to make it easier again is lower yourself on one, stand up on two. Lower yourself on one, stand up on two. Again, if we don't have a chair and you're confident enough to do, you can just go straight down on one leg